Hi, this is pattern and fabric designer Rachel Rossi. Today I'm going to show you how to work with freezer paper when you're doing foundation paper piecing. This technique is really great for those of us that love the look of foundation paper piecing but hate the tearing involved. In my experience, it creates more precise blocks, and because you can reuse templates, it saves on paper. In this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about foundation paper piecing with freezer paper. The supplies for this method are really simple. First off is freezer paper, like the kind you would find at the grocery store. This should be fairly cheap, can come on a roll, and will last you forever. Then you're going to need a template. There are lots of foundation paper piecing templates for free online, or you can download a simple practice block from the description below. I use a add a quarter ruler, but you can just use any acrylic ruler that you normally use for quilting. A light box is helpful but not necessary, and a pencil. And before we start sewing, I'd like to take a minute to talk about presser feet. You do not need a special presser foot for this technique, but there are some helpful ones that you might already have. The first two that I'm going to show you probably came with your sewing machine. One is an open toe, that's the number 20. This one by Bernina is just really simple and is going to allow you to see your needle and paper very clearly. The second foot is the zigzag foot. This has a marking in the center, and that marking is going to tell you where your needle will hit. So this is great for this technique because you can line that up right along the edge of your paper and know that your needle isn't going to go into the paper. The last foot I want to show you is the blind stitch foot. And you'd be surprised, but this probably also came with your machine. It has a blade down the center of the foot with a little notch cut out of it, and this is where your needle will land. This is great because it sits right against the paper and smoothly glides along as you stitch. I found that this foot makes my work more accurate and I'm less likely to make mistakes. All of that to say, you don't need a special foot for this technique, but I highly suggest a blind stitch foot or a zigzag foot. And now we can finally get started. Start by laying your template on a flat surface and laying a piece of freezer paper over top. You're going to want to have the shiny side down and the dull side up. Use a ruler and a pencil. I'm using pen so that you can see clearly. And once you see how much ink I have on my hands by the end of this video, you'll be reaching for your pencil. So what we're doing here is tracing. First, I'm going through and outlining all of the dotted lines on my template. In my patterns, the dotted lines are the point where your seam allowance will be, so you want to sew out to these outer lines. So I'm tracing them first so that it's easy to tell if my template has shifted at all while tracing. So I'll go through, trace all the lines, and transfer all the numbers. And see that little extra line there that I drew by accident? If you make a mistake like this, it's totally fine. Just put a little X by it, and even if you did stitch along that line, it would be fine. I really like this technique because it's very forgiving. Now that we have everything traced, we're going to cut out our template. Some people prefer to cut a little bit extra around their template. I like to cut right along the edge of mine, so just make sure that you cut your template out to make things easier for yourself. Next is the step that I always forget to do, so if you forget, it's okay, you can go back and do it later, but it's very helpful if you do this at the beginning. What we'll be doing is folding along every line that we've traced. I like to start at my largest number and work down so that I know I haven't forgotten anything, but as long as all the lines are folded, it does not matter what order they are folded in. And you're probably wondering on those angles if you fold the whole paper or just on the angle. And that doesn't matter either. Just fold along the lines that are drawn. If you want to fold the entire paper on that line, that's fine. But as you'll see here, I'm going to do it both ways so that you know it doesn't matter. Next, we grab the fabric that we want to be on the template for number 1. We're going to put the right side of the fabric down, the shiny side of the template down, and we're going to press with a dry iron so that the fabric sticks to the template. Back at the cutting board, we're going to fold along the lines between 1 and 2. So we'll take our paper and peel it off of the fabric just a little bit, and since everything's pre-folded, it's very easy to fold along that line. I'll grab my add a quarter ruler. Again, you can use any ruler you like. We're just trimming the fabric so that we get a 1/4 of an inch seam. Now I'll grab my second fabric for piece number 2 and line up the raw edge with the raw edge that we just cut. So we'll have piece 1 and 2. If a jaggy edge bothers you, you can trim that down as well. And now we will head to the sewing machine where, using the paper as our guide, we'll stitch through both pieces of fabric right along the edge of the template. I'm going to be using that blind stitch foot that I showed you earlier, and as we're working, it's important to remember to start about a 1/4 of an inch before the line that you're working on. This ensures that the stitches continue into the seam allowance on the pieces that connect with it, and that way you won't have any unraveling and things will be nice and secure. Now that we've reached the end of that line, we're going to cut our threads, and just to show you what we did, you can peel back a little bit and see that we have a perfectly straight line and no tearing of paper involved. We'll head back to the ironing board and we're going to press piece number 2 to our template. So open the template up, fold the fabric out, and press again with a dry iron so that the fabric sticks to your template. Sometimes I flip it over to make sure it's really stuck on there. This is what makes these blocks so accurate, because the fabric can't slip anywhere. We'll head back to the cutting board, and since we just did the line between 1 and 2, we're now headed over to 3 and the line between 1 and 3. Just like before, we're going to fold back. We're going to trim for a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then add the fabric for piece number 3. Again, now is a good time to trim any jaggy edges, just so things are nice and perfect on the back. We'll head to our sewing machine and again stitch right along the edge of the paper without hitting it. Now might be a good time to tell you that if you do go through your paper, it's not the end of the world. You're just going to gently tug on the paper to separate it from the fabric, and then you can still reuse your template and move on. So just as before, we're going to press our fabric out and make sure that it sticks to our template, and then we'll head on over and repeat the process again. Now I'm going to put it in double time, but still show you how the entire block comes together for more visual learners. If you're ready to skip to the good part and just want to see how it works, head on over to the 10-minute and 38-second mark. Now that we've stitched and pressed our entire block, it's time to cut it out. So what you'll do is cut along whatever the dotted line was on your original template. This will ensure that the proper seam allowance is accounted for. And now for the very best part of the process, where we would normally put on a movie and be tearing papers and having shreds of papers all over our home for the next year, we are simply going to peel off this template carefully and reuse it on our next block. Now this block is from my Block of the Month program called Potting Table, and this is a skill building program, so I will be showing you fun things like how to do curved piecing, how to do bias tape applique, a little embroidery if you'd like, invisible machine applique, and of course foundation paper piecing. To create this quilt for yourself, you can find the pattern at www.rachelrossi.design/BOM. This is where you'll find all of my Block of the Month patterns. You'll be able to join and become a member and have lifetime access to all of these great tutorials and exclusive member content. If you prefer visual learning or are a newer quilter that wants to watch how I do each of the steps, you can also add on a video class. These are pre-recorded classes that walk you through every single step of every pattern every month. For more information, you can use the link below or visit www.rachelrossi.design/BOM.